Hello, Supercoaches, and welcome to a brand new episode of the official SuperCoach AFL show. And we have a massive announcement to drop today. Get all your breaking news first on the official SuperCoach show. Paton here, joined by some of the leading lights of the fantasy community to talk about this exciting news. The Phantom dialing in from the lair. Phantom, good to have you on board.
Thank you, Al. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. We had the last episode. We thought that was Christmas. This time another big present has landed under your SuperCoach tree. You said leading minds of the SuperCoach community. There is three of those in the podcast today, and we've got Phantom Junior Doss here next to me in the lair. We've led him back here, and he's pretty excited about what you're going to tell him, Al, I think.
Yeah, very excited. Huge news. I won't delay too much longer so the listeners can hear, but we do have another guest here, and it is my good friend Patch. Welcome aboard, Patch.
Hello, welcome. I'm very excited to finally be let partially into the lair to have a little gander. It's very, very damp in here, but yeah, very
long overdue.
Excited to have all you gents with me for this one. So what we want to tell people is that there is an exciting change coming to SuperCoach for 2025. Of course, SuperCoach Plus subscribers will get access to the early team pickup very soon. Keep an eye out for that on all your social channels, and the platform will be opening shortly before Christmas. But we can tell people exclusively today that when you see what SuperCoach AFL looks like for 2025, there will in fact be a brand new position and an extra player on the field, which is a big change for a game that we've known and loved for a long time. So there'll be 31 players in your squad now, and 23 of them on the field, including a brand new flex position to go with our defenders, forwards, rucks, and of course all our midfielders. And flex is, as it describes, I guess, can be pretty much any player you like from any position to add to your on-field setup each round. And the crucial piece of information that goes with this is the introduction of best 22 scoring every week. So obviously buys, we're used to having best 18. Now we're going to get best 22 for all the other rounds. So you'll have 23 players on the field going into the round, and only your best 22 scores count towards your total for that round. So, you know, you might think of it as like a Tom Green rule. We remember last year, I think it was round 8 against the Swans. A lot of people brought in Tom Green that week. He was great value.
We remember.
Yes, Phantom, you would remember this well, and got injured. I think it was an ankle injury in a tackle very, very early in the game, subbed out with just 5 points to his name. So assuming nothing else crazy happened that week, if that happens again next year, Tom Green's score would drop out and only your best 22 count. So it just helps you dodge those bullets from late outs and subs and concussions, especially. I mean, this is a new era of footy that we need to move with. So, hopefully we'll make the game more enjoyable, a bit fairer, I guess, easier to play, especially for those late unforeseen issues that you just can't deal with. And I'm sure there'll be lots of strategy that can go with it as well, which will give us plenty to talk about and new ways to attack SuperCoach in 2025.
That is massive. A big flex there from our over in the official SuperCoach HQ, Dossie. There is a lot of strategy that's going to be involved in it. We've got plenty of time to talk about that for us hardcores, but it's great, I think, for we know not all SuperCoach players are like us and are glued to their SuperCoach app, the TVs, all weekend. We know life gets in the way sometimes, but this way takes a bit of frustration out when something like that happens and you're not able to adjust or notice the event happening during the weekend. So I agree. It sounds like it's going to make the game more enjoyable for more people. And, you know, the first thought I have is, you know, if I'm weighing up two mid-prices in the preseason, I can pick them both and be hurt by both. So,
yeah. Well, I got a couple of questions if I can jump in before Dossie does. Does that mean everyone's like, we get more money? Is there more salary cap? Like how does this fit in, Al?
Yes, no, that's an excellent question. The salary cap will remain at $10 million, but because we're picking an extra player, every player's price will be adjusted slightly downwards. So we'll have to get used to that when the picker is open, and we can look at players who we might normally see as a 600K guy. He might be 580,000 or something like that. And one thing I must say that when I first saw some of the communications going around about this is rookies priced under $100,000 are back. So can't wait to pick a few 99K rookies on my bench.
Ain't a tasty rule.
In a world of inflation, everything going up, this is music to the ears. A bit of a discount. Look, it might be artificially created with the extra position here, but we love to see a few discounts around the board. I tell you what, Go ahead, Vance.
The Reserve Bank today, as recording, have held the cash rate officially as it is, but we're going down. We're for the people.
We're going
The
down.
hip pockets of super coaches around the country are rejoicing. There's some increased discretionary income to go around. It's great.
Can't afford your house, but you can afford more players in Supercoach.
I
Does
think
that
it's
mean, sorry, Dossie, to cut you off yet again. Is there a flex position on the bench, Al? Or
No, there's not. So, yeah, that's worth bearing in mind. So just 31 in the squad. So your normal bench as it has been. And that means if your flex player is a 0, a DNP, then you don't actually have any emergency cover for that. But they would effectively, I guess, be your 23rd and they would drop out.
yeah, so like if a Tom de Koning, for example, just doesn't play,
Ooh.
Just to pick a random.
just a player at random. Anyway, sorry, Dossie, you're allowed. I'll permit you to speak now.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, I think for the hardcores, as you mentioned, Fance before, though, it is fantastic for being able to miss those, the Tom de Koning scores. Many people suffered a Tom Green. I also suffered a few other scores along the way last season, looking forward to those dropping out of my scores. But I think just the fact you can get that the flex position that can be any position on the ground, it's going to open up a lot of different strategies for, the serious, the really hardcore people that focus a lot of their time and efforts. And I think just from my perspective already, focusing lots of time and effort this season, my thoughts immediately have turned to a position I dare to dream having a third of, and that would be the ruck position. But I'm keen to hear some of the more deeper strategy thoughts perhaps later in the pod. But is there any other burning questions maybe, Al, to get through before we kind of move on to the nitty-gritty?
Well, I thought the salary cap was a good one, so thank you, Patch, for raising that. Can your flex be nominated as captain or vice captain? Yes, they can. So they're effectively treated like any other player. They can substitute on and off. DPP obviously comes into play. If you've got a mid forward there, you can swap them around with other players. So you can pretty much do whatever you like there. I guess the only caveat to put on it is with best 22, and this has been the case for best 18 scoring that we've had in the past as well. If your captain actually is not in your best 18 scorers for the week or best 22 now, then you don't get a captain score that week. Your vice captain doesn't automatically get doubled unless your captain is actually a 0. So that's just something to bear in mind. Hopefully not something that will affect us too often during the season, but just a question that some people might have. But I think those were the key ones. Is there anything else that you need to know?
We need to start playing. It's a lot to take in. It's going to be a good thing. Are we going to think too much into it? We know last year and the changes have come over the past few years, the great changes to our great game of SuperCoach make it more fun, more enjoyable and a better experience. But sometimes we've overthought these changes in terms of strategy. Last year we went, obviously opening round was thrown on us a bit by the competition, the AFL. We overthought it a little bit maybe, and we might dial back what we do with our planning and players who do have those early season buys. Do you think we're going to overlook this flex rule, Dossie? I know you've got some strong thoughts already, but I want to wait and see what happens over the preseason, see some prices, see what's happening over the competition, the community series and the scratch matches. Training notes will be all over. I think I want to see more of that before I go down a path of what I want to do with the flex position. You've got different theory already.
Yeah, well, I think in terms of consistency of scoring, we always see our rucks performing quite well. And often we think, I'd love to have another one of those guys on my field. And for me, that was where my thought went. Now, I don't know whether that's starting with an extra one or whether that's, that spot's used for a bit of extra cash gen. If we say have an extra midfield rookie, as we often have, in abundance, whether that's building that cash early. But I think late game, it's going to be very interesting how we're going to use this new position in strategy going forward. And even the early game, as I mentioned, there's going to be lots of different ways to do this. Do you load up with an extra premium sort of early on in any position that you desire? Like I said, maybe ruck is that popular one because you've only got the 2 slots on field in general. But I think it does open up a world of possibilities. But yes, I think my attention did immediately turn to ruck. Did you have a different sort of opinion as to how you might use this early game or late game?
I mean, my thought was the same as you, Dossie. I thought the perfect player for this would be a bargain ruck forward DPP type player. Now, are we actually going to get someone who fits that mold? That might be the tricky one. We've already seen the positions come out. There weren't a whole lot of ruck forwards, I have to say, and none that jumped off the page. I mean, I don't know that I could go down a Luke Jackson path again all the way from round one. But, I think, in the old days we used to get 4 rucks and you could sometimes, you had to make this difficult choice between you just spend up on the primos because we know they score so well, or maybe there's a value ruck guy there like a Lloyd Meek or somebody, and this could give you a bit of a chance to have, a bit of a bet both ways. But is there a cheap ruck floating around that we think is going to fit that mold yet? Or obviously, as Fan says, a lot will play out over the preseason. But I can't think of a player that comes to mind that would exactly do that for us. But we might get one, hopefully.
I can see the great mind of Patch ticking over 1,000,000 miles an hour. He's thinking, he's planning already. He's listening to Dossie. He's almost rolling eyes a little bit at Dossie because we know Dossie wants to pick Tom de Koning at his flex position. But Patch, what are your first thoughts?
Well, I mean, I'm doing a great job of masking it in. It's just the old DVD screensaver where it's just bouncing around. And every now and again, I think you caught me at a moment where it just hit the corner and there was a single thought. And it's the first one I've had all day. But I don't know. I think the fact that it gives us an extra player to start with means that cash generation can really boost up. And I'm still very unsure as to what it'll look like late game or end of season if we, can pick someone who might have a really high ceiling but a really low floor. If that's, say, Shea Bolton gets back to his best and is pumping out a 160 one week and a 40 the next week, and the 40 is mitigated by the fact that it's best 22. Or if we, go for a ruck or target a position, I think that's very much going to come out in the wash. And I'm not thinking too much about that yet, but more starting side, do you go an extra rookie and go, uber guns and primos because you're trying to save that little bit more cash and you load up, say in the back line or load up somewhere else. Or if that then means you can play around with instead of having, in your side, last year, if you wanted to have, say, 2 mid-prices, if you wanted to have someone like a Perryman and a Cumming this year, but were worried about missing out on defensive rookies, you might not miss out on those rookies this year because you've got that extra spot to slide them into. So I think that gives a lot more flexibility to go deeper in some lines to start with. And then, whether or not that is to go with a massive primo or with a couple more cheaper guys that are more value that you can then offload later in the season. I don't know. I'll need to see it and actually play around with it before I can make that call. But that's where my brain is currently, worming it over. And then also if we're, upgrading to 23 on field primos plus anyone on the bench, how does that affect the trading pattern? Does that mean you need to kind of slow down and conserve trades a bit more? You need to be a bit smarter with them compared to the last couple of years where, we've had more trades, we've had boosts, it's been go early season. Does it slow it down or does it speed it up even more? I don't know. There's a lot of water to go under the bridge, and I'm very excited to play around with it.
Phantom in the past has been a fan of the 23rd primo, and that up until now has been to try and get an extra one, maybe floater sitting on the bench. But is that now your flex guy?
24 primos. Yeah, I do like it there. I think the way we do it is going to change over the year, and I'm interested to get there and see what we do. But I don't mind. I like Patch's thinking about, talked about Cumming, talked about Harry Perryman, but, our man over here now, we have claimed him. And I was a bit torn yesterday when I saw James Peatling absolutely crunch my other man, Jordan Smokey Dawson, at training. But he looks very good. He's got the bucket hat on. He's flying out there on the track down at West Lakes. You pick him again in the midfield, and then, you're not sacrificing on those midfield rookies where we know the cash gen comes and the points. You can put an extra one in that flex position like Patch mentioned there. So I understand the ruck thought, but I don't mind the thinking there. It gives you a bit more flexibility. You can have a bit more of a punt and not sacrifice that extra cash gen.
And I feel like picking a ruck as well really locks you into that strategy, especially if you do it early. Because if you decide to go elsewhere, it's very hard. You'd have to offload one of those rucks or put them on the bench. But I don't know. Yeah, it may well be the go because, you look at last year, we all wanted Cherry and Grundy and Gawn, and then we wanted Grundy out of there for someone else. But, that way you can have 3 of them, but do you lock yourself in? I just don't like trading in the rucks. I just getting it out of the way early in the 2025 season. My anti-ruck trading rant is done. It's in the books. Mark it off the agenda.
Patch v Dossie.
With this extra player dropping off as well, and, you get an extra kind of crack at having a decent, probably rookie score, out of a couple of rookies that may drop off out of your score there. Do we think maybe this also assists us in if we want to start an extra mid-pricer or an extra premium from those early buy rounds as well? Like, maybe a bit of less risk to start with a Callum Mills who does have the round 3 buy, or a Kitty Coleman. You could maybe test your luck on a couple of those, knowing that they won't score early in the season. You still have that sort of fallback on field that you're not going to get a shocker of a score if you do happen to bite one of those bullets early.
Well, it's best, we think, all these rules will be confirmed when the picker and everything opens. But if it's best 18 again in the buy rounds, you'll be now getting best 18 of 31 players rather than have 30. So, yeah, it does potentially give you some more cover there, especially if it's round 2 or round 3 where you're hoping all your rookies are playing, and you might only need 2 or 3 of them to go well, and the rest don't count anyway. So, that could be that's a good point, because round 3, looking at the fixture, is going to be really tricky when you've got all those Brisbane guys, and Nick Dacos is in there as well, and that could be one where you're starting to worry how many you've got, but this might give you an extra little bit of cover.
Dossie, just thinking ahead, thinking way ahead of the pack as usual there, fans.
Don't call you Buzz light year for nothing, light years ahead. But could you, I don't know, could you even go, you'd be taking a risk because you don't want to lose that cash gen, but can you go for another premium and you don't need to worry about the on-field scoring of those rookies much, so you can go a bit cheaper. I know you wouldn't want to destroy your early season cash gen by picking the rookies that might not score as well as your top picks in the midfield, let's say. But do you pick 3 or 4 guys, sub 100K, take a few hits because you can't afford that extra premium, because you don't need that extra score on your field compared to what everyone else has. So plenty to talk about, plenty of water to go under the bridge, plenty of preseason action to watch, plenty of data to go over. I think
we did see last year in those buy rounds that the players with the high ceilings were the ones.
Yep.
The coaches got rewarded if you had the right ones, obviously. But yeah, sort of going for value didn't necessarily work out, because you just wanted the guys who were pumping out 150. So if you can find a way to get an extra one of them.
Yep.
But then, like you say, you might be robbing Peter to pay Paul if you
so
filling your bench with 99K rookies.
You're thinking guns and rookies are the way to go early days out. That's
with an extra gun and an extra rookie.
That was kind of my lesson from last year, I think.
Yeah, and building on that, I'm wondering, there'll be a roughly 10% price decrease. You said, does that mean that there's 10% more money to be made on these cheaper rookies compared to last year because they got a lower starting price? So that means that that'll affect break evens. This is apparently the bumper rookie crop, the draft, to end all drafts. Does that mean we can trust these rookies more and will be rewarded more for it? Is that where we could be going with this as well, where it does really, you crunch all your cash into as many, whether or not that's, heaps of mid prices, or if it's like a few really like concentrated and thought out uber primos, does that mean we have more scope to make more cash this year, and it'll just be come middle of the year, we'll be just Scrooge McDucking it up?
Maybe. Yeah, we'll have to crunch some numbers on that. It's not quite a 10% discount, though. It's only maybe 3%, I think.
Okay, well, never mind then.
So, like a 117K rookie might be 113K, something like that.
Yeah, okay. I just had dollar signs in my eyes, dreaming wistfully of being rich one day. Maybe, probably not.
Well, plenty more to go across in the coming weeks, and I know in future episodes we'll answer a lot more of your questions, and on the socials as well. We'll be across this. This is the sort of the official announcement on the podcast of the flex position. So if you do have any questions, make sure you get across the socials, and also for next week we'll be doing more podcasts then. So if you do have any further questions, I'm sure we can touch on all those, and interested to know how the community will be also thinking about these strategies and where their thoughts are to start with, how they're thinking of starting them, how they're thinking of finishing their team. It's all very good info, fans.
And it is very good info. And I know Patch is excited. I'm excited. Our keeping everything pretty close to his chest, but give us something, Cow. Is it very soon? Is it soon? Is it not very soon? Are we close? to the team picker.
Yeah,
We
we're
know
close.
that's the
We're
real
close.
Christmas. It's not December 25. It's whenever the team picker opens.
Yes, and it won't. Yeah, you don't have to wait till Christmas. It'll
Cool.
be
There we go.
before then. So
If you could give me a number on how soon it is between, say, like 11 and 25, hypothetically.
it's somewhere in there. Yeah.
Ooh, in between maybe.
Oh, okay, okay.
We're
It's
excited.
not far off. Not far off. We're just doing ticking some final boxes, and yeah, it'd be great to get it out there.
And speaking of not far off as well, we do get the chance to play with it before the AFL team picker launches because SuperCoach BBL has the flex position this year. And have you, playing around with your team there, have you noticed anything from SuperCoach BBL that you could translate across just yet? Because I'm excited to play around with BBL this year. A lot of it for the flex.
Yeah, I'm literally putting an article together to go out the next couple of days with how are people treating flex, and I've sent an email out to a bunch of people who really know their stuff, and I've got I think about 6 replies back, and they've all got different people in there and doing it different ways. So which is going to be great, but yeah, we'll sort of have to, and like you say, it's a good chance to test it out a bit and see what happens, and that will hopefully give us a few pointers to what we do when AFL rolls around. But yeah, that'll be good fun to play with.
If you haven't signed up, sign up.
My email must be still coming through, yeah. So just still waiting for it. I'll give you a reply though if you want it. My team's looking pretty good. I showed Dossie before. He asked me how does he pick a team, so had to give him a few pointers. The NBL Supercoach specialist, Dossie, but BBL very excited coming up in a couple of days. I think it's good with the flex as well in BBL, different because we play the fixture. There are buys, there are double games. You can sort of hide your players a little bit. There's not as much need to trade them out, but different ball game, but a fun one. If you haven't signed up, like Pat said, get on there and do it now. It all starts on the weekend.
Cannot wait. I think before we sort of close it out, as I said, stay tuned next week. Follow along on Spotify, Apple, wherever you're listening. We're also on Code Sports YouTube now. We're going to be putting up our podcasts across the year on there. So if you do prefer video, head over to Code Sports YouTube. That's where you can find all the SuperCoach AFL content this year on the podcast front. So make sure you hit the follow, hit the subscribe, give us a rating as well if you don't mind. But let's just talk some actual nitty-gritty players before we head off. Now, I know, Al, you've been keeping track of a lot of track watch notes. I've also got some notes here from good friend of the show. I'll shout him out a bit later, but Jordan, mate of mine, a couple of very high finishes in SuperCoach. He's also been compiling all his track notes from around the Twitter sphere and also looking at all our great articles here. But Al, do you have just a couple of notes? And I'll finish them off with some of these notes from Jordan DeSena, my boy.
Yeah, I've got a document going, and it's starting to get a bit unwieldy already, and we're only early December, but there's a few that have caught my eye early on. I thought, I think a club that has been very SuperCoach relevant the last couple of seasons and will definitely be again in 2025 is North Melbourne, and the name that we're keen to see and just doing everything that we want to see at this stage is Caleb Daniel. Looks fantastic, says he's happy just slotting in at halfback at the Kangaroos in some of their match sims. So that's just made me a very happy man leading into Christmas. Some of the other names there, Colby McKercher and Harry Sheasel both been full-time midfield. Tom Powell floating around the halfback line, which is potentially juicy or very dangerous. Finn O'Sullivan maybe on a wing to start, which is maybe not exactly what we want from a midfield rookie type, but yeah, we're going to be picking plenty of Kangaroos, I think, again next season. Anyone else there that we should be aware of? Dossie or Fance, who do you like down at Arden Street?
A bit happening. I think a bit happening over here in SA. I'll quickly jump in. We know Sid Draper is flying. We've spoken about him already, impressing down there at West Lakes. It'd be hard to see him not in that round one side if all continues to go on that path. So going to be one to look at when the preseason matches roll around, but one to keep an eye on, labelled a bit of a steal in the draft at Port Adelaide. Christian Moraes, a Victorian kid's come across, and another friend of the show, friend of the Lair 5 name, Simeon Kingsley Thomas Wilson, has been down at Albert, and he noted the other day, came back, was pretty excited. He said, Moraes has already been impressing, and then last week, as all the other draftees sat on the side and were guided through what was happening and talked about what was happening on the field, he was on the field with the rest of the squad participating in some half-field match sim. So they do like what he's doing down there at Port. We know Ken Hinckley isn't afraid to give these guys a crack and throw the youngsters in there in the deep end straight away. So one to keep an eye on, I think, when we get some games, when we get some internal trials happening in the new year.
You mentioned the Crows briefly there, fans. There's going to be plenty of interest there as well. Sid Draper, obviously, your boy already. But what about Peatling? Obviously, you said is looking good. Dan Curtin now playing midfield, or is he a forward? What's he going to do as a potential rookie option? And Isaac Cummings, the other one who I'm very interested in coming across from GWS, is mid only, which initially put me off. But now, as you've pointed out with Flex, maybe that opens the door again to. Cumming. He is a mid in SuperCoach, but we think he'll probably play defence for the Crows. Is that right?
Yep. Should slot him back there, looking very lean as well at training. So he's definitely going to be one to watch. Peatling, again, we've spoken about his tackle on Jordan Dawson. If you haven't seen it, codesports.com.au, 5 names was there. He's everywhere. Dossie, 5 names. He was down at Richmond Oval yesterday watching James Peatling take out Jordan Dawson, but they've been very intense. He's almost led an increase in intensity, James Peatling down there at the Crows over summer. So he wasn't one I was initially interested in SuperCoach, depending on what they've got a lot to go through there, but I think he's really hit the ground running. So he's come up a little bit in my watch list. Dan Curtin, Dossie, you've been talking about him in the office. I'm just worried what they do with him. I know he's been all over the shop, finished forward. He's a forward in SuperCoach. Is the big-bodied midfielder long-term? Maybe. When does that start? Or does he go back like he did in the Waffle?
Well, I'm just big on second-year breakouts, and I can't wait to talk breakouts in the new year at some point. But there's always the big thing about a third-year breakout. But for me, I'm always looking at those second-year breakouts, particularly for guys that didn't get a full opportunity in the first year. If you've had a ripping first year, it's always quite hard to, go to the next level unless you are a Nick Dacos or a Harry Sheasel, for instance. But for a guy like Curtin, who just really struggled in that first year with both injury and form, I think looking at him in year 2, if he has a big preseason, regardless of what role he has, his price is just going to be amazingly cheap next year, given that his average, we talked about it last week, I think it was in the low 30s due to all the subs and whatever. So if he's playing mid, if he's playing forward, if he's just in the team, I think he's just definitely one that we can watch.
Yep. What about Josh Smiley over there at Punt Road out, just pushing the bigger bodies around already?
Well, you're going down on Friday to watch him in person, aren't you?
Yes, I am. So we'll try and take some video footage and we'll share that with people. But I think he'll be easy to spot because he looks absolutely massive. It's just crazy that he's playing as a midfielder. So he's definitely the standout of the kids, especially given quite a few of them are going to be managed coming back from injury. So I think of the Richmond rookies draftees, he's definitely the one to watch. I'll see what Tom Lynch is up to as well because he's likely to be very cheap.
Stop it. Every year you keep doing it.
Cheap enough. You're going to be cheap enough, yeah.
Well, we'll find out soon, but we'll see. I'll be potentially tempted but we have to see him picked in round 1, so that's a fair way off. But currently, I think he's on track. But
I'll go get the fly swat and just
well, the other one that might tempt we saw just breaking news today was Finlay McRae dominating at Collingwood match sim. What do you think of that, Patch? We could pick 2 McRaes.
We could pick 2 McRaes, and I won't. I'd rather Tom Powell than Finn McRae again. But we've
heard this story every year. I reckon every year for the last. Dominant in the preseason, never really gets a crack.
But Nick Dacos did also mention a big rap for Ed Allen as well, the WA draftee from a couple of years ago, as one to watch. And when asked about who's going to break out at Collingwood in 2025. So Ed Allen, one to watch for over the preseason.
Yeah, there's a bunch of those guys that are kind of a bit cheaper that, Nathan O'Driscoll coming back from a lot of injury under 200K. I'm interested in the Giants, like James Leake didn't play at all last year in his first year. A lot of holes in that Giants side. I'm interested to see who slides in there. And looking at Port Adelaide, Jason Horne-Francis obviously, got that forward eligibility. Very interested in how he goes. Rory Atkins won the time trial.
He did. The rat.
We can't.
We could.
Could we? I don't know. I'm not saying no, not yet. I'd rather him than Finlay McRae at this stage.
Darcy, what about Paddy Dow? Is that who you've got a picture of behind you in your new studio setup? I saw our squinting before, couldn't work out what the hell you've done to the wall here in the lair. You've taken it over. What's he going to do this year?
Oh, he's going to have an outstanding year. He's going to be amazing. Look, I'm waiting for the first track watch notes of him coming out, Al. Surely not far around the corner. But these are a few more notes from Geordie. Just this is the amount of attention that people, our SuperCoach community, is already paying to the AFL preseason. It's amazing. He's already talking about Callum Mills, jacked. He's flagging inside role. There's been some talk about Dean Cox as well with his positional changes. We've already heard lots of different things. There was a Nick Newman training with the midfielders. I don't know if that might have even been our very own Chloe that was sort of there looking at a few of those things. We've seen one that I'm very interested in. So there's plenty to talk about. Obviously, I won't go through every single one. I know Liam Baker at halfback from my mighty West Coast Eagles. That is something that's certainly of interest given, believe he's got the forward status this year as well.
You've sold out.
So he's one that we're looking at. One that I really am interested in talking about these breakouts, Caleb Windsor training with the defenders by a few reports as well coming out. And this is one from Geordie DeSena, high finisher, multiple years in a row in SuperCoach. He's one that he's got his eyes very close on. So shout out to him and shout out to all the track watchers out there as well, official and not official. There's plenty of them around the place. But Al, did you have any more that you've had?
The other one at the D's, obviously, that the photographers are all over when he showed up for pre-season was Clayton Oliver. Waiting eagerly to see where he will be priced, but it will be a lot cheaper than he has been the last few years. Fans, any early thoughts on Clary?
Definitely a watch. Definitely a watch. If he gets through and has a good summer, I mean, we know that didn't happen last year. Hugely interrupted summer and was playing catch up. Then maybe was he played out of position as a result a little bit, probably. So at the price, it's not even about money really with Clayton Oliver. If we see him continue and get consistency through January, February, and he's playing in those preseason games and he's playing well, then he looms as a big pod because some people won't go there again, but we know what he can do. He's one of the best SuperCoach scorers in the game when up and going. So he's going to hopefully get there eventually, but it's definitely high on the watch list. Harry Sharp, one of your boys, also crossed down from Brisbane. Is there a wing spot potentially available? They do have some good ones. If Caleb Windsor does go back, does that open up for our boy Harry Sharp? But speaking
on the time trial, I saw.
Oh, yep.
When doesn't he?
That's true.
Yeah, he's a bit of a specialist.
Now, we know Dossie's got lots of boys. Not sure how many he's going to have this year, but my boy didn't feature last year. Very strange one. Now, I reckon he's going to be cheap. We hope to find out very soon. But Will Brodie, over at the Dockers, if something happens with their midfield mix, if something opens up, we know he can score. It was weird how he's overlooked. We all know his deficiencies, and it's always been that way. But we saw his strengths on show a couple of years ago. He was good for Fremantle's midfield. My hope is that he does get another chance to come back in there, and he could be one that could pop up again in SuperCoach, given it's going to be a heavily discounted price.
Interesting. What about the Bombers patched in your neck of the woods? I saw Saad El Hawley doing it very nicely in the preseason, so he'll be a big rookie watch.
He'll be my first pick. My second pick could be Zach Merritt, and then throw the rest away. Maybe
Did you
Kako.
see Dylan Shield trialing across halfback?
I'll be releasing VFL SuperCoach next year. If so, then maybe I'll take a look, but I'm not. We'll be rivaling you for the spoon next year. I'm calling it nice and early. I'm just popping a pin in the balloon. Will be bad. Will be real bad. It might be exciting at times, but we will not be good at football. And maybe that's good opportunity-wise. Archie Roberts, if you're looking at a second-year breakout, I'd be very interested. The price will be awful, but particularly for draft, he will be one that probably slides a bit, and I'd be very interested in a piece of his action. But otherwise, there's very little, I think, at Essendon at this stage.
Well, we've got plenty of SuperCoach still to talk about in the coming weeks. Make sure you continue to stick around. I think I want to close out because we know, obviously, Al, you've been teasing platform not far away, of course. We're waiting for that to come around. What Patch just mentioned his first pick. Can we go our top 3 first picks in your mind who you think you'll be eyeing off when things open up? I'll start with you, Al. You looked shocked to hear that question and you looked
without notice.
flummoxed, so let's go to you first.
Tom Lynch, number 1. No,
I get that fly swat. I swear I will.
No, I think Caleb Daniels, the clear number 1. If he's playing halfback for the Kangaroos. I mean, whoever plays halfback for the Kangaroos you pretty much want to pick him, and we know what he can do, and he's going to be cheap. So we'll find out exactly how cheap very soon. But yeah, I like him a lot. I mean, all those ex-Bulldogs. Bailey Smith is going to be, I assume, in most people's teams with mid-forward, pretty well discounted after a year out. So I like him. And then you've got Jack McRae as well. So why don't I just go with the 3 ex-Bevo boys?
Perfect.
But that's all looking for value. And like I said, maybe we don't want too many of those guys. So, yeah, that'll be something to think about. But, yeah, very, very tempted by them early on.
Patch, go your 3. If you've already got those 3, you've got to pick 3 new ones.
Put me on the spot. Jack McRae, Finn McRae, Craig McRae. Yeah, lock me in. Lock it in, Eddie. Sardell Hawley is probably the first one. I'm not allowed to say Caleb Daniel anymore, so I guess I'm really intrigued by Perryman. I'm not sure if he's going to be there by round 1, but I think he'll be in that first iteration to see if I can squeeze him in, and then we'll look at probably Zach Merritt based on how many early games Essendon will unjustifiably be handed on Thursdays and Friday nights. So he'll be a very good VC option.
So I can't pick Caleb because I'll be picking him as well, but the horny one, our man, Jason Horne-Francis, Sid Draper, and my other man, George Wardlaw.
Beautiful. That's 3 unique picks.
I'm
going to wrap it up with
couldn't go Caleb Daniel, so go the other recruit, and Jack Darling is locked in.
For me, Jagger Smith, best rookie of the class, in my opinion. Unfortunately, West Coast traded him away. Harley Reid, my boy, second year, absolute massive breakout. And then finally, I'm just going to lock away the Bont. Have you guys seen that he's got the flowing locks? He's up there in the time trial. He's already the best SuperCoach player going around.
Breakout,
breakout, you're 130 plus for the great man this year. No, I think I started with him last year and I didn't look back. So might have to just lock in the big dog again.
Dossie uncovering the gems.
What about
love to see him flying.
Those are my first 3 picks.
Mine went straight to the value guys, but I mean, if we're talking, primos, is Tristan Cherry R1 next year?
I think he has to be what he did. Dominant. We know the dominant ruckman, but again, there's not many ruckmen in the competition that have backed it up in the past. Yeah. Not saying he won't.
English last year. Thought he was safe.
So,
yeah.
But looks like a pretty bulletproof SuperCoach game for Tristan Cherry. You could see how Tim English could be stopped around the ground, how that would affect his SuperCoach scoring, but it's hard to stop Tristan Cherry where he scores SuperCoach points. So
good luck
I so.
Tristan Cherry. That's not going to end well for you.
And then North didn't bring in any extra ruck support or anything, did they?
Just, no, but Tom Campbell looming large at Melbourne.
Right. Before.
Max Gordy, watch out.
Drop that on us just to leave with.
I reckon we'll wrap it up there, Al.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's been awesome. Thank you, guys. So, yeah, it's just exciting news. As we've just figured out, there's plenty to talk about. Lots is going to flush out with, and I can't wait to hear how people enjoy the flex. And as Patch said, get into it in the BBL, and then once we start getting the chance to get in and play around with it with SuperCoach AFL and see what people can do with it. But yeah, ideally it'll make the game a little bit easier, a little bit less stressful and chaotic for a lot of people, and create a whole lot of new strategy discussions, which of course we love to do.
Fancy had one more thing.
No, well done. Just well done to I do like it. I'm looking forward to it. Can't wait for the team pick. And not December 11, not December 12, but not December 25 either, Dossie. So somewhere in between, Patch and I are excited. It's going to be a big year.
Let's go.
Very good.